Talk to us a little bit about how sleep is generally different from men, and then what are some optimal strategies that we can be thinking about if we are, so you've mentioned already, like cool dark room, we've all sort of heard of sleep hygiene hacks or strategies like that. What are some habits and action items that you like to counsel women on in midlife who are having trouble sleeping?
The first thing is I want women to understand their circadian rhythm is different than their male partner. So our circadian rhythms really work on a different cellular and like day-night rhythm than what our male partners do. And women tend to have a melatonin rise and the sleep onset need earlier than our male partners, which means women also tend to wake up earlier than their male partners. And often we see in households where you finally get the kids to bed and you want a little bit of time with your partner and you're sleepy, but you fight through it because you want to stay up with your partner and you've passed that wave of sleep. And then you can't get to sleep and you have interrupted sleep. So this is the very first thing I want to bring attention to for a lot of women that are listening and a lot of the women that I work with is finding where you have that drive for sleep. Where is that melatonin rise and that sleep onset coming? Because you might find it's at 9 or 9:30 and not 10:30. So being able to wind down and get into bed when you are able to capture that circadian rhythm shift into sleep and sleep onset is the very first step into being able to have a better and more restful sleep. When we look at people who are doing shift work or can't navigate that whole sleep onset, then we start looking at, okay, well, what are the things that we need to do to, one, be able to work with circadian rhythm, and two, really kind of tell the body that we're ready to bring core temperature down. We're ready to allow melatonin to come up and for us to get into this parasympathetic engagement. So one of the first things is we're not taking melatonin because the dosage over the counter is often not appropriate for women. It's often too much. If you can work with a specialist who knows how to microdose it, then that's fine. But when you're just buying something over the counter as a sleep aid, it again can fast forward to changing your body's own natural production as well as circadian rhythm. So we look at other things. We look at L-theanine. We look at ashwagandha. We look at cold tart cherry juice a half an hour before you want to go to sleep. So all of these are going to help drive parasympathetic and our hormonal and neurotransmitter responses in the brain to say, yep, okay, we're ready to get into that rest and digest. We see something as easy as cold tart cherry juice a half an hour before bed. It increases your body's own melatonin production and rides the wave, which means that you have more melatonin available to instigate sleep and sleep patterns. And the coldness drops your core temperature. And this is one of the things that we find in perimenopausal women is there's such a temperature fluctuation that instead of being able to dip low into a sleeping temperature your body's used to, it oscillates right at a wake temperature. So we see a natural progression of sleep as your core temperature drops by about 1 degree Fahrenheit. It stays low, and then it starts to come up as a natural waking cycle with cortisol. So if we can drop our core temperature and get down into that sleeping stage by using cold or icy fluid before bed, then this really does help you get into a faster sleep onset and helps you set up more of that delta wave sleep.
So I love that. I've never heard of cold tart cherry juice. That is something that I'm going to look into myself. What about, now that we're talking a little bit about adaptogens, schisandra, would that be something to help with the parasympathetic response?
Schisandra tends to wake people up. It gives them really good focus. So when we're looking at some of the adaptogens that are good for sleep, we can see rhodiola and ashwagandha are the two big ones. Some people do have a stimulant effect with rhodiola, so you want to try it out first. Like take it on a day where you don't have a lot going on and see if it makes you sleepy or wired, and then you'll know if you can use it before bed.
So if we have we'll say a phasic shift in our melatonin production, would that also have implications in terms of when we should have our last cup of coffee as well?
Yes and no. It depends on more genetic factor if you're a fast or a slow metabolizer. If you're a fast metabolizer, it's not such a big deal. It doesn't have such an impact on our melatonin and, our sleeping. But if you're a slow metabolizer, definitely.
Yeah.
Caveat is when we get into perimenopause, we find most women become more sensitive to caffeine. Why? Not sure. But we do see that there's an interference or maybe a change in dopamine and adenosine receptors that caffeine is so tightly tied to. So if we're seeing all the neurotransmitter changes that are happening in perimenopause, it makes sense that people become more sensitive to the effects of caffeine. So that's still an area of research that is being investigated because, menopause is supposedly new to research.
Right. It's never happened before.
It's never happened before.
Yeah. Just the WHI was the first time that anyone ever heard of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting. I get that feedback too. I hear a lot of women, they're like, coffee, love it, but I can't have it anymore because it just I feel it gives me the jitters and I just have this sensation of energy. I have this sensation of panic that I didn't necessarily have before. So that is interesting to sort of unpack and understand what's happening there. Research, hopefully will tell.
Hopefully, yeah.